So you can see I started this one and it's lighter right here. The light is hit. Sometimes when the light is so bright, you don't even see color on the flower. It's almost white, but I don't want white. I just want a faded color. So these petals, the light is hitting here, but on the shadow side of some of these flowers, it may be a cooler color. So I'm putting some cool color there. I'm not worried about any detail in the flower yet. I'm just worried about lights and darks. So, and then I'm going to show you as I work, you can be doing flowers and working the greens as you go. So, all right, last week, after you draw your hanging basket on lightly, I showed you, you take a big brush, and this is going to be my shadow side. This is the warmer side. So I took my a cool rose on this side and just splashed it on, and a warm rose on this side, which I mixed with transparent orange and rose, so it's more orangey. And then we came in with a little bit of burnt sienna and did the pot. Then you're gonna let that dry. Today, I came in with my shadow color and I put in, like we did the pumpkins, we put that shadow color on the pumpkin before we put the final coat of the pumpkin color on. So I put a violet in between the flowers on this side and on the shadow side of the bowl, and in between here and there. Because when you go to paint your green, that's gonna make that dark automatically. When you go to put in your burnt sienna, this will become dark automatically. All right, I did put in 3 bees. I just kind of scattered. I was gonna put more in and just have it go crazy, but I like a simpler version of it. And this is the permanent pen, so that when I go to paint them, they're going to look like this. See how nice and bright the ink, I could paint right over the ink and it's ready to go. And I don't lose it. I did have to come over with some of my lines because when I splash color, I lost some of the flowers, so I had to kind of redraw some of them on. But I didn't want it heavy because I want edges to be disappearing, and you'll see as I paint how I make them disappear. The colors that I'm using is this permanent rose, alizarin crimson, and transparent orange. This transparent orange mixed with the rose is what I used on the warm side. I used alizarin crimson, not full strength, just diluted on this side. And I used the burnt sienna heavier on this side. And then I used my violet and ultramarine blue. I didn't want a strong violet and I didn't want a blue, so I just wanted a soft violet color in between my flowers and on the shadow side of the bowl. This is gonna just get light up here. There's some yellow up in here. It's showing that the light source is coming this way. And you might see light behind the bowl, so I kept it light down here. So my flowers here are gonna be the lighter ones. I can always go darker. So I'm gonna start with this burnt or transparent orange, and I might slip some of that rose color over here. And I'm just going to just test it out by laying in the colors. There's one flower right in through here. There's a flower kind of hidden back here. You don't have to be real precise because I'm gonna come back in and put a shadow side on these. This is the flower here. This petal's turned up right here, right here. I'm not being so precise where I'm staying in the lines. This is the light side of a few flowers. And I think I'm gonna stop right here. And if you want to clarify where the center is, you can. There's a center. There's a little bit of center here, here, here. Impatiens have a little bit of yellow there. All right, now you're gonna have to let that dry. So while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm gonna take my rose color. I'm gonna just start with the permanent rose, not real dark. And I'm going to start working over in the darkest area here. Can you see that? I can move over. And then I'm gonna put, so this will be a cooler red or cooler rose. This is warmer. And I'm going to just splash on some of this color. Remember, you're gonna probably put on several layers. I just wanna get some flowers started. You don't have to paint like a coloring book where it has to be real precise, because we're gonna put more color on here. All right, I am going to be working with 2 brushes. All right, I already started my light side, and this is my dark side. I'm gonna work over here, which probably isn't good because your hand is getting in the way, but I'm going to, I like to work from light to dark anyways. So I already have this light in. I'm gonna go into my rose color. And I know this side of the flower is cooler. This petal here will have a cooler tone right here, here. It might be cooler right here. I will use my second brush just to kind of clean up or blend out. I'm not too worried about the rope. I could take a paper towel or a tissue and just blot my rope clean again. Just gonna lighten that a little. I'm going to push that dark down into the center. I might even have to bring in some more of that orangey color and let those colors mingle. I'm going to darken here. I'm gonna darken here. So the rose color is going where I either wanna separate the petals or darken the shadow side. And I'm going to take some of that as if there might be some petals back here and they would be darker. And back in here, it's kind of buried. Back in here. And just clean up a little bit here and there. So what you're gonna have is the dark side will be more of a rosy color. You can let this dry and we'll come back with more color and just fade it out. If I want to change that to the green, it'll change. So that's what you're going to have, and you can see how colorful that begins. It isn't just a coloring book where you're coloring each petal. You're letting those colors mingle, and I think it's more pleasing to the eye. And if we want to come back and even lighten this more, we can take our little Mr. Clean and even lighten it a little bit and maybe glaze some yellow on it. I'm just gonna blend this out a little bit here. So on my palette, I have light green, which is yellow, and phthalo green, which makes a very vivid green. And if it's too vivid, you're gonna just add some red and tone it down and it becomes darker. Let's just add. So you can tone that down, have a light green, and then right here, I have very dark greens. And I'm gonna work both of these so that they mingle. I think I have some sap green here. Any greens you want to put on your palette and drop in. I have a sap green there. I have that really dark green. I can't think of the name offhand right now, but I will know it next week. And you can also have ultramarine blue, which works nice with greens. Okay. Now to make things look like they're going into the distance, they're not going to have the detail or the depth of the fine lines. They're going to be fuzzier. I want to erase some of these lines if I can. No, they're already wet. I can't erase any of these lines. So I am going to take my warm rose color and give an indication that there might be a flower back here. I'm going to just fade that out. I'm going to put another one maybe up in here. It's in the background. I don't want to do a perfect circle. Maybe there's another one right here, but this is the light side. All right, so I'm going to stop there. All right, now I'm going to start putting in the dark green. I did not put violet up here because I don't want it as dark as it is as it goes into the bowl. I want it to get lighter and lighter as it goes out. So I am going to I'm going to start with sap green. Sap green is always a good starting color. And I'm going to start putting it in where there might be some leaves behind the foreground ones and the flowers. And I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to bring it up here. There's a leaf here. Okay, do a little bit at a time. I'm going to fade this out into that flower, but I don't want to lose this leaf. I'm going to fade this out here. I don't want a hard edge. I can come back and darken this green if it's too vivid. It's going to be around this rope area. I think I want some dark green right in here. Where's my sap? And you have to be careful where your flowers are. This is the hard part, is not losing your flowers. Okay. Then, well, keep it going. I'm going to go back to my light color, and I want to fade this out in through here. And just fade it as if there's foliage back there. Okay. I'm going to take that same green. I don't like it to have two different greens when they're separated, so I'm going to put that green right here too. I'm going to go on down here. I think this is a flower over here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. Okay, I'm going to go into my darker green, and I'm going to start dropping in some dark greens. And I'm just going to let those colors mingle. You can put as many layers as you want. So don't be afraid to start light and then go darker. You're testing the colors to see if they're going to work. Okay. I don't know what that is there, so I think that's a flower back there. So I'm going to take a little bit of that sap green again, go around these positive leaves, go around the bee, and just fade this into that green that I moved up here. You can switch to a bigger brush if you're getting too many strokes. Push it in. Okay. And I will define these leaves. Okay, so that's the start of your green and your warm color flowers. I'm not going to do any detail yet until this is dry. So now I'm going to go back to my flowers and let this green dry. I'm going to go back into my rose color and I'm going to start shaping these flowers a little bit. I'm going to bring some edge. I'm going to bring this is the darker side, so I want to pop this forward. I want to create, I'm always putting color down, fading it. I don't want to lose, this is, there's a center right here. So this is a yellow center here. So I want to, this is dark. And I'm going to, if you want it to fade, push your brush into the color. Sometimes it works better pulling it out. Whatever works for you. Sometimes, where's my alizarin crimson? If it's not getting dark enough, just go into your alizarin crimson. That's your darkest rose color. I'm gonna go over that little color there. And I'm gonna go down here. With impatiens, they tend to be a little darker here in the center anyways, so. And you don't have to do this to every flower. You just wanna define some of them. You can even take some of the original color and push that into the dark color. This is where you have to learn the balance of how much water to use and how much color to use. It can get out of control if you use too much water. And before it really has a chance to really dry, you can make corrections. Going back into the rose color. That was a little too dry. It wasn't moving, and I'm going to define these petals here. And again, I'm going to take an orangier rose. And if it becomes too orange, remember the technique of glazing, of just going over that with a rose color. I want this just kind of fading there. I'm just going to give a little more color here and there to this flower. Same thing with this. There's a flower back here, but it's not going to be defined. So you can see how that, you can see there's a flower there, but it's not got the detail as this. So this is supposed to be the fun part. Just kind of shape those petals one at a time. I'm popping this one forward. This petal, I don't know where it belongs, but it's there. And I'm going to, you don't have to tell the viewer every little thing. You can let them guess, oh, that's a petal, or that's a leaf, or whatever. But you can see how the colors are getting richer as I put my darks in. This is dark in through here. There's I'm going into my orangey color, softening that edge, pushing that into the center. Same thing, I'm gonna separate this. I have my bee coming into this flower. I might even take a brighter color, more rose. No, I don't like that because I want this one to come to the surface. You're playing with your design. What's coming forward should be light. What's going back should be dark. Maybe you want this one to come forward again. I'm gonna wet this, take my tissue and bring that forward. and maybe just this edge. So you just have to step back and see what isn't coming forward and what you need to push back and forth. I'm gonna take my alizarin and I wanna push this back. There's a big flower back there. I'm just gonna darken that. Okay, and you can just soften the edge by blotting. I have a bee right here. I think I'm going to work on that. I have a wing here and a wing here, and there's a flower kind of bent here. Let me do the flower just because I don't want to lose the flower. Here's the wing, here's the wing. So I'm going to paint around the wing. There's a flower here and down in here. Okay, so that defines my bee right here, and this is the wing. So if you did not mask out your bee and your white pigment isn't covering, you can try the white pigment first, but I know this is, I think, Chinese white, but it soaks in to the paper. So I'm going to paint the wing. That's my bee. And it's pretty heavy and it's got enough water in there to move. Okay, so now I use that permanent ink on my bee. So I'm gonna start with the lighter color first, and that would be the yellow. So I'm gonna go into my brightest yellow. And I know this is white, this is black, and this is yellow right in here. Ooh, that's real wet. Be careful. Right in here is yellow. And I think there was a little yellow right here, I think, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it. And keep it curved, don't go straight. Give that bee that fatty, rounded feeling. Okay, now, as that dries, I'm mixing up my black. I have some black mixed here, which remember is green, alizarin, and that's 2 browns. So I'm going to mix a little yellow, maybe. No, red. Let's see, alizarin, green, more green. Let's do just more green. Green and if you don't have enough ink lines on there, you can take your black mixture, and if you take it right up to that yellow, and that yellow is still kind of wet, it's gonna create that fuzzy edge. And I'm going to put the black right here. And right here. And right here. And then there's a little leg here, and it's kind of thick on the top, and then it gets thin, thick on the top, and then thin, little leg on the other side. Now, if you want more movement, you know, these are kind of small, but you can create the illusion of roundness on your bee by taking a golden color of yellow. I'm going to take New Gamboge, and I'm going to darken this side a little bit, this side a little bit, because the light would be hitting the top of the bee. And I'm gonna go back into a little bit more yellow. This is what I mean. You're just gonna keep playing with those layers. I'm going to add that yellow and see if it moves that black a little bit. And then I'm gonna take the Chinese white again. This is the back end was on some of the images I saw were white. So I'm gonna put the black there, put another coat on the wing, and if all else fails, it can have a little yellowish tone to it, that's okay. Use masking fluid, and that's your bee. So paint behind it so you can define your bee, and then we're gonna bring those flowers out more. If you want a lighter center in the center of your flowers, it kind of gives that a pop. Let's see, there's a center here. So those are the kind of details you're gonna play, and then I'm gonna play with the detail on the leaves that are closest to the viewer. They're the only ones that are gonna have some detail.